So in this tutorial, I'm going to go over the basics of adding a blend space for your character and adding it to the animation blueprint. What this is going to allow is you're going to be able to have your animations play with no problem on a replicated server and client. So right now I have a little bit of extra animations that I got from the marketplace. These are the free ones that Epic provides. If I go back, this is just a basic third-person character. I got a player controller, and then if we open up the game mode, I've set my player controller class to the Blendspace tutorial controller, as well as the default pawn to the Blendspace tutorial character. The first thing I want to do is I want to grab the animation blueprint in the mannequin, and I'm actually just going to drag and make a duplicate. And then I'm going to rename this Blendspace tutorial. Perfect. The next thing I need to do is I need to go into my character, and under the mesh we need to change the anim class to our newly created Blendspace tutorial animation blueprint. Just save and exit. Now we can finally begin working with our Blendspace. So let's right click. Let's go up to animation, and I'm going to create a blend space. And I would pick my character's mesh or skeleton, and I'm going to call this BS for blend space. And then we're just going to do a quick run. So let's go ahead and open up our new blend space. So there's a few things we need to set. In our axis settings, we need to set up first one would be direction. We're going to set our minimum value would be negative 180 degrees, and then our maximum value would be 180 degrees. This is all fine. Grid numbers, interpolation, and then the vertical axis we're going to go with speed. So our maximum speed I'm going to set to, I'm going to say 270. And this should be all correct. Now in order to add an animation to your blend space, you basically just have to drag it in. So I'm actually going to go down to where it says our jog, and I'm going to put jog forward at direction 0. And the same thing with jog forward at no speed. So that should be good. I'm going to set our backwards for when we're at negative 180. Same thing at speed 0. And when we're at 180, it'll be backwards as well. Now let's put our left over at negative 90. Just click and drag over. And our right is going to be at 90. And that's all we need to do for this. So as I click and drag each animation onto the proper axis, what it's going to do is it's automatically going to set up the values for direction and speed, along with the proper animation that we need. So we can go ahead and close this. what we'll do is we'll open up our Blendspace animation blueprint. The first thing we need to do is do our calculation on our speed and distance. So let's just separate this, move this out of the way for now. And we're not using a 1D blend space anymore. So let's just get rid of this. What we need to do is in our variables is create a direction variable, and this is going to be a float. The next thing we want to do is we want to get our actor's rotation. Let's separate this for now. So up here we want to set our set our speed. After that we want to calculate direction. So there's a function built in under animation to calculate our direction. Doing so, it only takes the velocity and the base rotation. Now after that we can plug this back in. This is going to tell if we're jumping or not. Save and compile. Actually, what I forgot to do was plug my direction in. So let's set our direction. And now we can plug if our character's in the air. And I'm just gonna move this over just a little bit so I can put a comment in here. So I'm going to hit C to make a comment. Alright, so down here where it says anim graph, we're going to open that up. We're going to make a few changes. First change, so I'm actually going to rename this. Instead of idle/run, we're just going to call it run. And what I want to do is I want to drag a new node. I'm going to add a state, and this is going to be our new idle. So if we double click idle, we'll go in, and I'm going to drag out a node from result. I'm going to search for my third person idle. What this is going to allow me to do is to constantly keep playing my idle. Right now we're going to get a error because I've dragged a node. If we go back to default, I've dragged a node, but it has no way to enter the transition. So this little circle right here is saying how are we going to get into our run transition, and that's actually pretty easy. So I'm going to click on this and double click, so it's going to open up our transition rule. So I'm going to take my speed. In order to get in, I'm going to say, is it greater than, let's say 10. If we're moving at a speed greater than 10, we can enter our run transition. Let's save, compile and save. That should fix that error. Let's go back to default. So now that we have a transition into run, that should work, but we can't get out of run back to idle. So I'm just gonna click, left click, and drag, and it's going to create a transition for us. But this time I'm going to go into this transition rule, and I'm going to say, okay, let's get our speed, and we're going to check if it's less than or equal to 10. Select all my nodes, go to alignment, straighten it, and there we go. Oops, I accidentally closed my animation graph. So now that we have our idle to run, currently we have no way to jump from idle. We can only jump from run. So what we can do is take this transition rule, we can promote it to shared. And I'm going to call it jump start. And then I'm going to click and drag a transition rule. So idle to jump start, and I'm going to use our transition rule, which is jump start. And we're going to do the same for jump end. And the same thing, I'm going to click from jump end, drag it over to idle, and I'm going to go up here into transition and jump end. So these rules are sharing. So we're automatically going to either start the jump, either in idle or run, and it's going to loop through, and when it needs to end, based on what our transition rule is, we're going to either end up in idle or run. So to jump start, let's go into the transition rule, and it's basically is in air, enter the transition. Then we go back to default. To end it, we're going to check third person jump asset, so it's getting the time remaining ratio, and it's saying if A is less than B, so if it's less than 0.01, we can end the transition. Let's compile and save. And that should be pretty close to it. So to make sure I'm running on a dedicated server. So right now, I'm not actually doing much. I'm gonna make sure. Blendspace tutorial. Yep. Ah, yes. That's what I actually forgot to do. So we never actually changed our blend space. So if I double click our run, it's still using the old third person idle to run. So what I need to do is I need to get rid of this, and our name is blend space run. So just drag a node and we'll go blend space run. So now let's just hook up our variables, which is our speed and our direction. Now if we hit play, when we run, it's going to change the character stance to whatever animations I would like it to change to, and then go back to idle. But let's actually run as dedicated, and I'll set the number of players to 2. And I'm actually going to change it to a new window. Let me set this up and resize this. So we can now see that if we look, the player's now running, and he looks like he's holding a rifle with the animations. So if we stop, let's go into the other one. Let's move this camera so we can see. So both clients can see the same animations playing on the character. So this is a pretty basic overview of how Blendspaces work with the animation blueprint, and then the animation relays to the server. Alright, thank you for watching.